Welcome to Salon Talks. I am Mary Elizabeth Williams, and this woman here is Jill Duggar Dillard. She is a midwife, a mother, and an author. You know her, of course, from her years on the TLC series 19 Kids and Counting On, and the recent Amazon documentary Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets. But now she has one of the most talked about books of the year, and it is called Counting the Cost, a memoir. Hi, Jill. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Great to be on here with you.
It's a pleasure. When you start in this book, I did not realize that when you talk about counting the cost, you mean that in a very literal and often financial way. I had not expected that. You say in the book, in reality television, everything has a cost. And you were making trade-offs financially and personally from a young age. Tell me about what some of those trade-offs look like, because it feels to me that being in that church community, being in your family already primed you in some ways to understand about making trade-offs in life.
Yeah, there were definitely many costs, that's why I just love the title of the book, because it is all encompassing of various costs that I had to account for in my life. So whether it be the show and just the invasion of privacy there, that just became more apparent as Derek and I tried to really be our own family unit and keep some aspects of our life rolling while they didn't align with where the film crew and all the TV stuff was headed, or just with family dynamics and family relationships and how all of that unfolded. There were just so many aspects that kind of hit us in the face, really, that we were not expecting.
And you say in this book, you for years thought that you were just, quote, working as volunteers. That was
Mm-hmm.
how you saw your relationship with the show, with what you were doing, that it was part of your work for your family, that it was your obligation to
Ministry.
your
Yeah.
family. Yeah. And then tell me a little bit about how that changed.
Yeah, so that's really what was pushed to us. It was like two sides of the coin, like, oh, this is a ministry to like all of us kids since the time we were young. It was always told to us, like, this is our family ministry. And so Derek and I were like, okay, yeah, we'll just like, be a part of this ministry when we can and like as much as we can to help the family. And we definitely knew there were pressures there to conform to this. And so even when we were very tired and overworked and we were facing challenges that way, we just kept pressing on because we were like, well, this is what we have to do. Like we're obligated to the family. It was more like that family pool. But as life went on and we just couldn't, and it was starting to really affect us, that's when we started to make decisions that were different from my family and the whole show. And we got to, when push came to shove, we're like, okay, we just need to stop the show and really get control of our lives. But yeah, we were very much under the impression that we were just volunteers and that we could stop when we wanted to because it was a ministry. It wasn't anything else to us.
And you were given a contract on your wedding day.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
day
you think
before.
about what a
Yeah.
wedding day is like, the chaos of that, in addition to it's extra chaotic because you've got People Magazine, you've got television crews, you've got all of that swirling around you, and you're handed a contract and you don't even really know what that means until a couple of years later, a year later.
Yeah, so I was handed the contract the day before our wedding, and I was not informed of what it was. I did not even have any information. When I asked what it was, I was told this is just about how you're going to get paid. And then, like, I thought, okay, this is just like an appearance release type thing that we would sign just to, like, there were like seasons with the show where you'd be like, okay, this is just so we can show your face for these episodes, that type of thing. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like, okay, but I trusted my dad. So it didn't seem like a big deal. There were no pages to read. It was literally just a signature page. So I didn't think about it until later years later, when we were asked to come back for a shoot, like must have been, let's see, like a couple years later, and there was pressure to come back for this promo shoot, and we were like, no, like this is one of those things, like people knew we were on the mission field in Central America, and we had been dedicated to that work down there. And so we were like, no, this isn't a surprise. Like we told everybody we were coming down here for this term, like this window of time. And our boss had asked us like not to return to the States. And we'd made that commitment to him. And it was at that point that contract that I became aware of this contract, because they used it as leverage to say, no, you have to come back. You're obligated to. And I was like, hold up, what? Like, I'm not obligated to anything. And they're like, yes, you are. Here you go. And I'm like months later, finally, they gave me like a little portion of it, like first they send me bullet points and then they're like, oh yeah, actually you are obligated to this. And I was like, what in the world? No, I'm not. And they still wouldn't even send me the whole thing. They would just send me like obligations.
Right. And you had to fight your way out of that. And, obviously many of us have been watching your family now for almost 20 years, right? I mean, this began, or 15 years. Your family is obviously very unique, very special, but the issues that you explore in this book have ramifications for all of us living in America right now. The way that you talk about the IBLP, the way you talk about the mission of Bill Gothard, and what the implications are for our families, for our educational system, and obviously politically have deep ramifications. For those of us who are not as familiar with this organization, what do you want us to know about what's going on there, what continues to go on there?
Yeah, I think for the IBLP organization as a whole that I grew up in, and all of these legalistic rules that they talk about, and then filming added to that, and just the way the world is headed right now, I think there are a lot of aspects that are transcendent to other areas of life. So that's a huge thing that I've heard from people is like, oh, I didn't grow up at all like you, but I feel the same problems that you're feeling, or relationships, or rules, that I grew up with. And somebody else was saying, I didn't grow up with any rules. And I feel like I would be tending toward like being overbearing with my kids. So hearing your story has been helpful to me to realize like more rules are not always better, And so, yeah, I think you just need to go in with your eyes wide open and not be fearful, because that's also not healthy, but definitely like work through things, process things, surround yourself with people who are going to help you work through things. See a therapist. That's like huge. I know our generation is very much about like advocating for mental health and therapy and all of that. And then with COVID, I mean, lots of insurances now cover therapy. So I think that's always helpful too.
Yeah, you talk in the book about the therapy, and I wanted to ask you about that because yes, your generation, my generation, we have a comfort level with therapy, but it is still more taboo and seen as more of a weakness, particularly in religious communities, right? Like God should be able to answer all your questions and God should be able to solve all your problems. For people who are deep in religious communities, I think you're telling a very important message. What do you want people to know that you can reconcile your faith and getting some therapeutic help?
Yeah, I do think that it's helpful. Just like you would see a doctor for something, I think that you need to see somebody when you're dealing with, you have to find somebody that is your fit. That's what I've told my friends too. Like you may find a doctor that you hate, so you got to like interview people, find somebody that fits well with you for therapy. But I think it is important. I think that emotions and problems we face, it's good to have kind of like almost like a life coach, having somebody advocating for you who's removed from your situation, who's going to help you work through things, who's been trained in that. And at some points you may need it more than others. You may need special, like intense, like I had a really bad day. I need to schedule an emergency therapy session or whatever. Or at some points you may be where we are now, kind of where it's like just more of here and there, you know? So, yeah, but I think it's very, very helpful.
You know, that's one of the many ways that you talk about healing in your book. And I want to ask you about something that I think is really important that you get at in such a unique and articulate way. You know, you were very upfront in this book about your brother's abuse and what happened when it was first investigated, and then what happened when the details were revealed years later. And when you talk about the experiences of talking to law enforcement, talking to different people, and then having that information revealed, you use words like terror, horror, re-traumatized. And it is important for people to know that it's not just about abuse, it's about the way it is handled, it is about the way it is spoken about, and it is about the person at the center of it controlling their own narrative. And when that narrative was taken away from you, that's one of the central stories in this book. Talk to me about what you wish had happened and how it could have gone differently, and how you hope that it can go differently for someone else who is in that situation.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that I would have to address this part of my life in the book because it's been a very public, unfortunately, part of my story. But I also was very careful in the way that I handled it. And I was adamant that I would not tell it in a way that that continued to expose very private parts of my story, and things that should have never been released and should have never been out there as a victim. And I believe that victims should always be protected, and especially juvenile victims. And that was something that was unfortunately and illegally taken from me. So I definitely believe that there was a re-victimization that happened in the way that it was handled. So I think that everything should have remained private for me, not to protect the abuser, but as a victim, as a juvenile victim. Like I put in the book, like the judge's opinion on everything, he called it out and said what it was. He said this was illegal, you know, what they did as far as like talking about these things, releasing these things. The only reason why they got off the hook was because of their status and their position, and they were granted immunity as government officials. You have to meet a different level of a different standard there. So they were granted immunity, but what they did was illegal. So but I hold them accountable for their actions. And I hope and pray going forward that no other victims would have to deal with the trauma that I face because of this, and the reliving and rehashing and all of this that just haunts me to this day, you know. It's emotional for me to even talk about it. So,
Jill,
yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through it, in your words, as entertainment. That
Yeah.
this was treated as entertainment because you were on a television show. And the way that you write about it in the book, I think, is really important, and really important, especially for those of us on this side of the media, to understand when we talk about these issues and we talk about the people at the center of them, because you're still a person and you were a kid. Let me ask you about your family. I want to get back to your dad. You talk in the book, there's a line that really gets me. You say, when you were given away on your wedding day, that was a lie, that you still belonged to your father. You were a married woman, you were a mother, and your dad was still influencing and making decisions about your life. How did that play out for you in terms of being part of this patriarchal system?
Yeah, so I think that everybody kind of faces this whole struggle when you get married and you're trying to, or maybe when you go off to college, like you're trying to find out who am I and how am I separate from the people that raised me or whatever. Like you're trying to find your identity a little bit. So I was going through those normal feelings, but at the same time, there was a whole nother level that I wasn't even aware of that really did make me feel like, wait a second, like this was later, especially after the contract, where I was like, wait a second, why is there this like a handing off at the marriage altar, but then in reality it feels like I've got the rug ripped out from under me and I'm still under my dad's control. So um I correlated it almost to like a from the Bible story that popped in my head was the story of Laban with like Jacob and Rachel and Leah, where he gives like there's like a daughter. He has one daughter, but then he like tricks him into marrying the other one, and then he has to work for 7 years for the other daughter. Anyways, it's just this whole thing, and I really felt like that's how it felt. I was lied to, and now I'm being told that I have to not only with the contract stuff still be under my dad's control and the filming control, but also my upbringing in IBLP and that whole group. I'm being told that I'm held to a different standard because I know better, because this is the way that I was raised. Spiritually speaking, like if you backtrack or you lower your standards, that's what they would say, like lowering your standards, then you know better because this is the way you're raised and you're supposed to always adhere to these beliefs or whatever. So it's a really weird position that, yeah, it definitely made me feel like I was like given away, but not really.
Yeah. And Jill, you say at the end of the book, this book is not a letter to your family. It is in many ways independent of your relationship with your family. I think a lot of people who have had that kind of, maybe now my faith is different from my family's, or my lifestyle is different from my family's, or my beliefs are suddenly in conflict with my family, have to reckon with, how do I still maintain a relationship with these people I love and hold true to my own values now and my own morals? And I want, because we live in a very binary society. It's very easy to just break off and be estranged.
Good, bad, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you were working through a place of love and seeing, as you say, the roses and the thorns. What does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, it definitely, I loved that analogy that I put in the book about roses and thorns, where you can have beautiful parts to your story, and then you can have the thorny parts that are not so beautiful that you kind of, those might be your triggers. So with my relationship with my family, I have, it goes through seasons of different, like maybe I'll see them a lot. And then other times, I give everybody space. And like right now, after this book launch, like I definitely want to give people space because I validate those feelings and that need for space. So yeah, I think that it's important to, as you're processing things, to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and into, you might need to step back for a while and take some space for yourself, and that's okay. Like you might need time to process, and there will be a lot of triggers that you face that might kind of push you away for a little while because, or unhealthy toxic situations where abuse is continuing, like you may have to cut off complete contact. But yeah, I think for us it's just a matter of like kind of each step and each phase that we're in, kind of just taking a look and saying, okay, how do we feel about this? And then day to day, like how do I feel today? Like, do I feel like going to this birthday party? Do I have the energy? Am I in a healthy place where or are we like at our limit and I don't have time to go to this hour-long function and then come home and have to debrief for 3 hours? Like, is that like where we're at right now? So I think that's good to just like take those moments and process
Know
as you
your
go.
boundaries. I want to ask you one more thing, Jill. You dedicate this book to, among others, those who have been harmed in the name of religion. A lot of people answer to that description, right? A lot
Mhm.
of all different religions all around the world. And yet you are still also a woman of great and deep faith. What does faith look like to you now? And how do you distinguish between the harmful aspects of religion and the love of your faith?
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah. So it's really been a process, and it's an ongoing process to kind of sort through things. And I wanted to put that in my book because I do feel like sometimes faith is weaponized, where people will say, well, you're speaking out because you're unforgiving or you're unloving or you're bitter. And it's obvious because otherwise you wouldn't say anything. And I'm like, excuse me, like there were people in the Bible too who advocated for unjust actions and who advocated against, injustice. And I correlated it similar to Esther in the Bible, where she felt called for such a time as this to rescue people. She was rescuing the Jewish people, but where you might be called to something and it doesn't align with what maybe your upbringing was, or you're going to face backlash. But right now, I am in a place where with my religious views, Derek and I have taken, especially, I feel like sometimes it's just been when we've been confronted with something and then we have to then face and be like, okay, what do we really believe about this? Whether it's music, dressing, like when I started wearing pants or getting a nose ring or those types of things, like really being forced to think about them. But then other things, just marriage and I mean, we had that example with the whole leave and cleave thing and the contract and just these upbringing things. But we really seek at this point in our lives and just where we are, it hasn't, our lives have not changed as far as we want to just honor Christ in all that we do. We love Jesus and we want to serve him. And we believe the Bible to be true. It's the interpretations a lot of times in the Bible that are humans misconstrue things, and maybe it's out of fear sometimes too. I think where in my upbringing, I can see where things are taken to the extreme because people are scared about how their kids are going to be raised or where things are going to go, so they use it kind of as like out of fear, a lot of these IBLP teachings. But anyways, yeah, so I love Jesus, and I'm thankful for God's grace and mercy in my life, and just that he has seen me through these hard times and continues to, and every day is not easy. And right now is one of those seasons that's very hard. Even though I'm excited about my book launch, it's hard because a lot of what I talk about in my story is very personal, and it's a lot about people that I love. And I do love my family. So I wanted that, like you were saying at the beginning of the interview, like I do want that to be apparent that I still love them. But yeah, it's a difficult season. So
Well, I wish you every grace as you go through it, Jill. Thank you so much for talking to me today. The book, once again, is called Counting the Cost. Jill Duggar, thank you so much for talking to me today, and
thank you.
congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Appreciate it.